The name also signifies his position at the center of the realm and his founding role in the agricultural civilization of the Central Plains. Why is that? A construct developed from the Zhou to Han dynasties to justify political unification and legitimacy, forcibly merging ancestral figures of disparate ethnic groups into a unified narrative of 天下一家, one family under heaven. This also allowed ruling groups to embellish their bloodline to appear more noble and thereby consolidate their authority. Virtually anyone who ascended this role, particularly those who seized power through rebellion, would invent a noble ancestral lineage to avoid being seen as usurpers, instead portraying themselves as descendants of sage emperors and rulers favored by the mandate of heaven. Truly, when your bloodline isn't divine enough, you invent a god for it. Her pregnancy lasted 24 months and she finally gave birth to Huangdi. She then developed methods to raise silkworms, draw silk from cocoons, and weave it into clothes. As legend attributes the invention of the cart to Huangdi, the name Xuanyuan itself refers to a cart or chariot. Later generations therefore used Xuanyuan as his clan title to commemorate this achievement. We often hear characters in historical dramas say they 略通岐黄之术, know a little about the art of qi and huang. The qi here refers to qi and the huang to Huangdi. Huangdi的内经, also translated as the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, is the foundational medical text of ancient China, written in the form of dialogues between Huangdi and Qi. What makes it truly remarkable is that it systematically introduced the concepts of meridians and acupunctural therapy, which restore balance in the body by stimulating specific acupoints, practices still widely used around the world today. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about one of the 5 emperors in the legend of San Huangdi, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. He is the victor of the Battle of Banquan over the 9th generation Yandi, whom we mentioned in our last episode about Yandi, and the founding ancestor of Chinese civilization, Huangdi. Just like Yandi we have covered in our previous episode, Huangdi was not his given name, but an honorary title bestowed by later generations. As you may already understand, the character Di originally referred to a tribal leader, but over time it came to represent the supreme ruler of the realm. In Huangdi's title, it carries both senses, tribal chief and universal sovereign, since he was revered as the common leader of all Huaxia peoples. And the character Huang in Huangdi's name comes from the earth virtue in the 5 elements philosophy, 金木水火土, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, since earth corresponds to the color yellow. As recorded in 史记, the records of the grand historian, Huangdi 有土德之瑞，故号皇帝. He displayed the auspicious sign of earth virtue, hence his title, Huangdi, literal meaning the Yellow Emperor. The name also signifies his position at the center of the realm and his founding role in the agricultural civilization of the Central Plains. Why is that? Simply put, the ancients mapped the 5 directions, east, south, west, north, and center, to the 5 elements. East was wood, south fire, west metal, north water, and the center earth, associated with the color yellow. The center linked to earth stood for the heart and core of the realm. Thus, earth occupies the center, symbolized Huangdi, earth the universal ruler. reigning from the heart of the central plains, representing legitimacy, central authority, and sovereignty over the four quarters. He resided near the Ji River, now in province Shanxi, hence he adopted Ji as his surname. Sound familiar? Huangdi also took his surname Jiang from the Jiang River where he lived. So we can see that surnames back then were not fixed, nor were they simply passed down from either the mother or the father. Mainstream consensus in modern Chinese historiography holds that the accounts of Huangdi having the surname Ji and Huangdi, Jiang, were retroactively assigned during the Warring States to Han Dynasty periods based on place names like the Ji River and the Jiang River associated with their tribal activity. Neither the Youjiao clan of their mothers nor the Shaodian clan of their fathers possessed fixed surnames. More accurately, the integration of the Huang lineage and surnames such as Ji and Jiang into a single genealogical tree was a construct developed from the Zhou to Han dynasties to justify political unification and legitimacy, forcibly merging ancestral figures of disparate ethnic groups into a unified narrative of 天下一家 one family under heaven. This also allowed ruling groups to embellish their bloodline to appear more noble and thereby consolidate their authority. Take Qingguo, the state of Qin during the Warring States. For example, the Qin people originally belonged to the Dongyi ethnic group, not the same branch as the Huaxia. Yet after the Warring States period, the Qin claimed to be descendants of Zhuanxu, one of Wudi, the five emperors, and thus shared a common lineage with the Huaxia, thus portraying themselves as legitimate Huaxia orthodoxy and making their unification fully justified. The Shang dynasty is another case in point. The Shang people worshipped Xuanyao, the duck bird, and their ancestral roots had no connection to Huangdi. Yet they were later incorporated into the imperial lineage as his descendants. The purpose was to portray the Zhou conquest of the Shang merely as a shift of power within the same clan, not a subjugation by a foreign ethnic group. This same pattern persisted unchanged from the Qin and Han dynasties all the way to the Qing dynasty, only growing more sophisticated over time. Virtually anyone who ascended the throne, particularly those who seized power through rebellion, would invent a noble ancestral lineage to avoid being seen as usurpers, instead portraying themselves as descendants of sage emperors and rulers favored by the mandate of heaven. Take Cao Cao during the Three Kingdoms period, father of the Wei dynasty first emperor. For example, originally the Cao family was descended from an adopted grandson of a court eunuch, a background widely looked down upon. So he claimed to be a descendant of Zheng Du, the sixth son of King Wen of Zhou dynasty, whose in fifth state was precisely Cao, and thus again become one part of Huangdi's lineage. Take Li Yuan, the founder of the Tang dynasty. Though he hailed from the Guanlong military aristocracy, a powerful clan of warrior nobles from northwest China, his lineage still lacked the prestige to legitimize his rule, so he simply claimed a legendary celebrity as his ancestor, Laozi, the founder of Taoism. He even posthumously titled him 圣祖玄元皇帝, sage ancestor, Xuanyuan Emperor. By tying his house to Taoism, Li Yuan elevated his status and secured his reign. Truly, when your bloodline isn't divine enough, you invent a god for it. Huangdi's mother from the Youjia tribe and his father from the tribe Shaodian. As mentioned earlier, Yandi's mother also from Youjia and his father also from Shaodian. This shows that the Youjia and the Shaodian tribes maintained a long-lasting stable alliance, probably centered on intermarriage as a key bond, a typical example of tribal integration in early ancient China. From the fact that the mothers of Yandi and Huangdi were known by personal names Yudeng and Fubao respectively, while their fathers are only recorded as from the Shaodian tribe. With no specific names preserved, we can infer the two characteristics of the ancient society of that time. First, this detail tells us that ancient societies still showed clear signs of being matriarchal system. Ancestry and identity passed down through the mother's line, and the women were the central figures in the clan. People identified strongly with their mother and her tribe, so knowing mother was normal. Because marriage arrangements were loose and unstable, fathers were not seen as crucial to bloodline. The fact that their father's name were not recorded fits this pattern exactly. Second, the Shaodian tribes is explicitly documented as patrilineal ancestral group, implying it already exhibited patrilineal inheritance and wielded significant influence, while the personal name of the founding father has not survived the clear record of patrilineal affiliation with the Shaodian tribe, shows that it had developed a male-centered collective identity and a power structure. Its prominence as a paternal lineage may have stemmed from advantages in hunting and military organization, or from strategic intermarriage with matrilineal groups such as the Youjia clan, which bolstered its power enough to be remembered by later generations. This phenomenon, knowing the paternal tribe but not the individual's name, bears traces of lingering matrilineal traditions while also signaling the rise of patrilineal clans. It thus captures the complex social dynamics of China's remote antiquity, a transitional era shifting from matrilineality to patrilineality. As for the birth of Huangdi, legends tell its own fascinating tale. After his parents' marriage, his mother failed to conceive for a long time, so she went to pray for a child. One day, the sky suddenly burst into thunder and lightning, and a bolt struck down from the heavens, causing her to conceive through divine inspiration. Her pregnancy lasted 24 months, and she finally gave birth to Huangdi. According to 史记, the records of the grand historian, 皇帝生而神灵，弱而能言，幼而循其，长而敦敏，成而聪明. This means that from birth, Huangdi displayed supernatural qualities. He could speak at a very young age, behaved with dignity and propriety in his early years, grew up to be sincere and reliable, and in adulthood became exceptionally intelligent, insightful, and wise. So today, let's talk about why Huangdi is known as the founding ancestor of Huaxia civilization and what remarkable contributions he made to it. We can look at this from 4 areas: economy, military, culture, and talent. Economically, Huangdi's tribe not only carried on the farming traditions of Yandi, but also improved agriculture by following the cycles of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and understanding seasonal changes. This led to a huge expansion of farmland, plentiful grain supplies, and a solid material foundation for population growth and tribal expansion. If Yandi laid the groundwork for agricultural civilization, Huangdi was the one who transformed it into a far more systematic and advanced system. What's more, Huangdi's wife Leizu pioneered sericulture. the practice of raising silkworms and making silk in early China. According to legend, she noticed the silkworms spinning cocoons in the wild and observed the strength and shine of silk threads. She then developed methods to raise silkworms, draw silk from cocoons, and weave it into clothes. This allowed people to move beyond the rough hemp and the animal hide to soft, delicate silk. As a major breakthrough in ancient farming and handicrafts, Leizu was later honored as Canshen, the silkworm goddess, and Canmu, the mother of silkworms. In military terms, legend has it that Huangdi invented chariots and boats. This not only improved the tribe's mobility and transport efficiency, but also brought a breakthrough in military maneuverability. Chariots could be used for charges, while ships enabled operations across rivers, greatly enhancing the arm's ability to deploy and maneuver. Here are two legends about how Huangdi was inspired to invent the wheeled vehicle. One story tells of wind-rolling ground objects. While working in the fields, Huangdi watched as the wind blew a straw hat or a round woven basket across the ground. He realized that a round wheel could replace human labor in carrying heavy things. According to the other account, he observed that rolling logs placed under the huge stones to move them were far more efficient than sliding. He then figured out how to fix these round logs to a frame, creating a stable functional cart. As legend attributes the invention of the cart to Huangdi, the name Xuanyuan itself refers to a cart or chariot. Later generations therefore used Xuanyuan as his clan title to commemorate this achievement. The heartland where his tribe lived also came to be known as Xuanyuan Zhiqiu, Xuanyuan Hill, named after him. As we noted earlier, Huangdi's surname was Ji. We didn't mention his given name before, because later historical accounts only record his title as Xuanyuan, the very term for chariot we just explained. While no trace of his original given name has been passed down, later generations customarily linked his surname with his honorary title, calling him Ji Xuanyuan. Now, speaking of Xuanyuan, many of you will remember Xuanyuan Fen, the tomb of Xuanyuan, as we discussed in second episode about Nuwa. She was enraged by the lewd poem King Zhou of Shang wrote about her. Seeing that the Shang dynasty's fate had run its course, she summoned 3 demons from the tomb of Xuanyuan. This tomb is actually the tomb of Huangdi, and according to legend, it is Yi Guan Zhou, a clothing and personal effects tomb, a symbolic grave that contains only his clothing and personal belongings, not his actual remains. In China, clothes and personal effects tombs were built not only for the bodiless, but also often to commemorate figures whose deaths remain mysterious and whose whereabouts unknown, lending them a strong legendary aura. Take Yang Yuhuan, the beloved consort of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang, for example. She was originally the wife of Li Mao, Shou Wang, Prince of Shou, the emperor's 18th son, making her his daughter-in-law, yet she later caught Xuanzong's eye with her extraordinary beauty and was taken into the imperial palace. When Anshi Zhiluan, the Anlushan rebellion, broke out in 755, the imperial court fled to Mawei Slope in 756, where the accompanying soldiers blamed the turmoil on Yang Yuhuan and her family and forced the emperor to order her death to quell the mutiny. No remains of hers were ever found, and folk legends even claim she actually fled east to Japan. which is why later generations built a clothing and personal effects tomb to lay her garments and belongings to rest. Another is Zhang Sanfeng, a great Taoist master of the early Ming dynasty, to avoid repeated summons from Ming Taizu Zhu Yuanzhang, the Hongwu emperor, and Ming Chengzu Zhu Di, the Yongle emperor. He faked his death and went into hiding. Historical records repeatedly note his passing, yet there were constant rumors of his reappearance, and his ultimate fate remains unknown. For this reason, closed tombs were erected for him across the country. By contrast, cenotaphs in British and American culture mostly honor those who died in wars or disasters and carry almost no such sense of mystery or legend. In terms of culture, he ordered Cangjie to create characters and Linglun to establish music, promoting the transmission of information and cultural identity. Of course, the characters attributed to Cangjie predate oracle bone script. Oracle bone script emerged nearly a millennium later. The legend of Cangjie inventing writing is essentially the collective memory and cultural origin seeking of ancient people regarding the birth of Chinese characters. The characters here most likely refer to early ideographic symbols or primitive prototypes of writing. Linglun, a legendary music minister under Huangdi, is regarded as one of the founding figures of Chinese musical pitch system. As the iconic ancient music official, he inspired the use of the character Lin to later denote musicians and performers, as in terms like Lingren and Youlin, a tradition that honors early court musicians and remains a classic title for those in music and opera. In terms of talent, not to mention the figures we've already covered, Leizu, Huangdi's wife, Cangjie, the inventor of writing, and Linglun, the founder of musical systems. Legend holds that Huangdi also appointed a capable circle of officials. Among them, Qibo stands out as his imperial physician. In Chinese, there is an idiom called Qi Huang Zhi Shu, the art of Qi and Huang, which specifically refers to traditional Chinese medicine. We often hear characters in historical dramas say they 略通qi huang zhi shu, know a little about the art of qi and huang. On the surface, this phrase may mean I only understand a bit of medicine. In reality, however, the speaker usually possesses solid or even considerable medical knowledge. They are simply expressing their ability to practice medicine in a humble, understated way. The qi here refers to Qibo and the Huang to Huangdi. According to legend, Huangdi and the great physician Qibo discussed pathology, health and awareness, and diagnostic and treatment methods. Their dialogues were compiled into Huangdi Neijing, the foundational classic of Chinese medicine. For this reason, later generations used Qi Huang as a byword for traditional Chinese medicine, and the expression 略通qi huang zhi shu, knowing a little of the art of Qi and Huang, perfectly reflects the cultural tradition in China of being modest and refraining from openly boasting about one's skills. Huangdi Neijing, also translated as the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, is the foundational medical text of ancient China. Written in the form of dialogues between Huangdi and Qibo, it focuses on the balance between the human body and nature, covering physiology, disease prevention, and the wisdom of health cultivation. What makes it truly remarkable is that it systematically introduced the concepts of meridians and acupunctural therapy, which restore balance in the body by stimulating specific acupoints, practices still widely used around the world today. It's a preventive idea of 治未病, treating disease before it arises, and the holistic health philosophy of 天人合一, harmony between heaven and humanity, are ancient yet highly consistent with modern approaches to health and wellness. However, mainstream academic consensus holds the Huangdi Neijing was compiled by later generations under the fictitious name of Huangdi and Qibo. The reasons are simple. Number one, the text was compiled between Zhanguo, the Warring States period, and Xi Han, the Western Han dynasty, long after the legendary era of Huangdi. Number two, its writing style, medical system, and ideology concepts all reflect the characteristics of Zhanguo, the Warring States, Qin, and Han dynasties, rather than those of ancient prehistoric times. Number three, in ancient times, it was common practice to attribute writings to ancient sages to enhance their authority rather than as a genuine record of their words. It was not the work of a single person or a single era. Its main content took shape from Zhanguo, the Warring States period, to the Qin and Han dynasties, and was largely finalized during the Han dynasty. As one of China's earliest surviving medical classics, it laid the theoretical foundation for traditional Chinese medicine. Moreover, talents such as Qibo did not necessarily come from Huangdi's own tribe, but were attracted by his inclusive policy of 抚万民度四方, caring for the people and governing the four directions. As recorded in records of the grand historian, he valued talent over kingship and gave people room to excel, leading the situation that 诸侯咸归轩辕. All lords pledged allegiance to Xuanyuan. For the smaller tribes that pledged allegiance, Huangdi shared resources and guaranteed their security, which encouraged more tribes to join the alliance voluntarily and strengthened his power. That's all for today. There's simply too much to cover in one video. We'll split the story of Huangdi into two parts. In the next episode, we will talk about Yanhuang Zhi战, the conflict between Yan Di and Huangdi, and 版权之战, the Battle of 版权.